Okay. All right. I apologize to you guys. I am not a computer geek, and I just I play around with this stuff to see what works. So, all right, let's start over again. And of course, whatever I'm going to say to you now is going to be completely different than what I just said. But we're going to start again. And
Sure.
No,
There's no echo, by the way, right now.
yeah,
So
I muted the other one. Okay, so duh,
okay.
I should have known that. Okay, you guys, welcome to the call, welcome to the hangout, welcome to Saturday morning, and welcome to the day that your life turns around. Because once you're done listening to this hangout and listening to Greg Kuhn, you're going to go, oh my gosh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Most everybody I know has been immersed in personal development. Especially those who are building a business. We're all marketers, we're building a business, and our focus is to grow our business, but our focus also is to grow ourselves. We know that that's so important, so we're immersed in personal development, and we're all students of the law of attraction. We're practitioners of the law of attraction. But the question always comes up, even if you don't express it out loud, because heaven forbid that we would say anything negative, right? I mean, that's the standard rule. You never speak negative, okay? As we've been taught. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it always comes up, well, I've been saying these affirmations day and night. I've got one friend that says 400 affirmations a day. 400.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying these affirmations. When I get a negative thought, I go, nope, I'm not thinking that. Everything's rosy. We're fighting against that all the time, but we don't think negative. We don't even speak it, because if you speak it, you're going to attract it. All of that we've been taught to visualize, to speak, to think positive has not resulted in manifesting financial abundance in our lives. And I speak for the whole group. We have a whole group that gets together on a mindset call, and we discuss this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I picked up your book and started reading it, and it was like, it's okay to say it's not working for once. It's okay to admit that. And then it was like, thank you. Thank you for bringing quantum physics together with the law of attraction and proving to us that we can manifest, but we just need some tweaking here. There's some things that we're missing in what we've been taught. So I'm excited. I'm excited to bring Greg Kuhn out. If you don't have his book, get it. Grow a Greater You. You'll be glad that you did. And if you haven't been to his website to get on his newsletter, it's whyquantumphysics.com. Get there. I hope I said that right. You can correct me if I didn't. And anyway, Greg, he's a science guy for the law of attraction. He's written several books, and he is changing lives. And I want him to come out just a little bit and tell his story about where he came from, because he has a story like most everybody else, but maybe his, some people start out at a certain point and move up, and some people start out at rock bottom because they've hit the very bottom of the pit, and they've got to turn their lives around. So I want you to hear Greg's story. It's in his book, but I want you to hear from him today, where he came from, what he has gone through, and how his life today is more magnificent than he ever imagined it would be. All right? How's that, Greg?
I appreciate you allowing me to wear clothes for this interview. I don't have any pants on, by the way.
Don't stand up.
Yeah, just to keep in the spirit of things. Yeah, if I stand up, it may kick us off of YouTube. So I won't do that to anyone. Don't worry. Glad to be here and spend Saturday morning with you. I want to say that I'm really honored to have the opportunity to speak with you this morning, and hopefully be given an opportunity to be of value to people, because that is something that's very important to me, and I don't take it for granted. And when I say that, I mean, appreciate any praise that comes my way. I love to hear that. I also know that the praise that comes my way is not because I am necessarily inherently that valuable, although I certainly think of myself that way. It is up to each individual, each consciousness possessing time-space event, which is a fancy word for a human being, uh, it's up to each of you to decide whether or not to bestow those characteristics upon me and to create me in that way in your individual universe. Yeah, absolutely. The way my life changed came about because I was, well, to be honest, it came about primarily because I didn't have anywhere else to turn. And I was bound and determined that I wasn't going to go down, you know, with a whimper. I was going to go down with, giving my best. And going down, by the way, when I referenced that, you talked about my story. I started a real estate business and invested everything that we had into that business, and I did exactly what you talked about. I knew some things about the law of attraction. I had read a lot of self-empowerment books, and I had even read about quantum physics, but it was mostly out of intellectual curiosity at the time. And I had learned what I thought to be the secret to how to, influence my material experiences in the way that I wanted them to unfold, and that was positive thought. And I made a commitment to positive thought about my business. And when I say that, I'm sure that a lot of people watching this hangout or listening to this hangout can relate. Probably not unusual here. I really, literally made a 24/7 commitment to positive thought about my business. Anytime I had a negative thought, I would stop myself and say, no, 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 I'm not going to let fear, rule my life. And I would change it to a positive thought. And I meditated and I prayed every day in a positive fashion, or wrote about the business in positive ways. I talked about the business in positive ways. And even when things started going awry, I forced myself to stay positive. I mean, I would take action. I would do things, good, logical things to, put things back on track, or, get things rolling in the right direction, that sort of thing. But my predominant thought was, isn't this going to be great when this all turns out to be a huge success, like I know it will, and I can look back and say, wow, I did not abandon the course when things appeared bleak. I guess I thought of it as being tested, and I thought I'm gonna do what successful people do. I'm gonna stand up in the face of this immediate fear, knowing that my long-term success is assured. And even right up to the end, I was so convinced in how powerfully positive thought would work to influence my material experiences. And so also so confident in the amount of energy I was devoting to it, the positive thought, right up to the end. I mean, even after I finally revealed the dire circumstances to my family, after it had gone too far, to hide it anymore, and too far to slap band-aids on it, and my family was aghast, and they were horrified, and they were terrified, because what was looming was bankruptcy and all these foreclosures, and you know, everything gone, right? And not to mention the fact that they didn't see it coming. Because of all my positive thought, I never talked about really, the ramifications of the negative things, because I felt like that was sacrosanct, and forbidden. So right up to the end, I kept thinking, I know that the universe is going to come in at the last minute, and aren't I going to look like a hero, and it really wasn't until nothing worked and nothing worked and nothing worked, and I got a call from an attorney who we had been working with, trying to work with the banks and kind of stall the process. And I got a call from the attorney, and she said, Greg, I got about 6 more months left that I can hold them off, and they're going to start foreclosing. There's nothing we can do. And I was so angry. I was just so distraught, and I was depressed, suicidal. I felt suicidal. I have 3 sons, and that definitely was a reason to not act on those thoughts. But I was just I was such a failure. I couldn't believe it. And looking back on it, and I don't know if other people can relate to this. You see, I unwittingly as I had done my whole life, had been applying my life to Newtonian paradigms. And Newtonian paradigms, and let's keep this part real short, sweet, and simple, okay? Newtonian paradigms are a paradigm is a fancy word for the reasons we do things the way we do them, and we all do things. Uh, the reasons we do things and the way we do them, they're based on the paradigms that we are taught, that we adhere to. And Newtonian paradigms come from the science of the first scientific revolution. Those are paradigms like, I mean, it's the science we learned about in high school. Like for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Newtonian physics or classical physics, that's the physics that describes the world we see with our eyes and ears, the physical time space we're in. And Newtonian physics makes perfect sense to our logic, our eyes, our ears. It's how we see the world working. And Newtonian physics tells us that, if we're displeased by something, if we're displeased by a material experience, whether it's an empty bank account, a body that's too lumpy for us, a spouse who doesn't get along with us, or an empty side of the bed next to us each evening, whatever the case may be, whatever the displeasure is, Newtonian physics says that what we need to do is change that thing. We need to focus on changing the material experience, to adjust it, to tinker with it, to mess with it, to mold it so that it becomes pleasing for us. Now that's perfectly logical, and that's what every how-to book in the world teaches us, right? If I want a sculpted body, I buy the Jillian Michaels DVD set, and I do exactly what she says. I follow her instructions exactly so I can get that body, right? Or if I want to become wealthy, I buy the Robert Kiyosaki Rich Dad Poor Dad. I do exactly what he says. I follow the instructions verbatim. If I want to have better efficacy or self-esteem, I buy Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I can go on and on. You know what I'm getting at. We buy how-to books. We attach our hopes to an instructor or a guru who promises us results, and we do exactly what that instructor or guru says, and we expect to get those results. That's a Newtonian paradigm. Well, that's exactly what I had done, only it didn't work. In fact, not only didn't it work, it was a horrible disaster, and whether we want to call the Newtonian paradigm teaches us that there's a gatekeeper outside of us who says yes or no, and whether we're going to a church or whether we're following the instructions in a how-to book, we're going through a set of actions that we believe and hope will allow the gatekeeper to say yes to us. If we pray the right way, if we do the right things, if we think the right thoughts, if we talk to the right people, if we take the right actions, we'll get that yes that we're looking for, right? And then when that yes doesn't come, what are we left with? We're left with two conclusions. Either, all those instructions are a scam, a sham, a lie, and or all the people that have the things that we want are, somehow morally corrupt, and we don't know exactly how they got them. But underneath all that is this underlying growing sense that there's something wrong with us,
Absolutely.
that we're wrong. And for me, when those results became just unavoidable, I could no longer pretend that they weren't really going to happen. The bankruptcy, the foreclosures, my wife leaving me, my family crumbling apart. The idea, I think more than anything else, the idea that for the rest of my life, I was going to be that guy around my kids, around my family. I was going to be that guy that ruined everyone's life in my family. The loser, right? The black sheep, the idiot, the fool, because I walked around telling everybody how smart I was and how successful I was going to be. Ultimately, for me, and I hope no one's ever been this low before, but for me, the gatekeeper, who I did everything right. I mean, I look back on it and I literally can't think of anything I didn't do in regards to positive thought. That gatekeeper didn't just tell me no. What that gatekeeper said to me was, you know what, Greg? I'm not just going to say no to you. I'm going to show you what happens when somebody as worthless as you has the audacity to think that you can have these things, that you deserve these things. I'm not just going to destroy you, I'm going to destroy your whole family, and I'm going to make you responsible for that. So you don't just get your life crushed, you bear the burden for the rest of your life of crushing everybody else too. And I was so livid, I was so angry, uh, so hopeless. And but like I said, I got that phone call, 6 months out, Greg, it's over in 6 months. And I thought, okay, I did everything right, right? And I knew from quantum physics, even though I hadn't thought of applying quantum physics, that it wasn't what I thought about that I was doing. I thought, I know that quantum physics says that I am an involved observer, that I am a part of what I'm observing. In fact, I'm creating what I'm observing through my observations. And I thought that the law of attraction was a way, I thought, wow, well, previously I thought the law of attraction is our explanation for how to do that. So, okay, I'll think positive thoughts and that's what I'll create, right? Well, I knew that quantum physics was accurate and precise. I mean, it's real. And by the way, if we ever want to get into it, the idea of what's real and what's not real in terms of not just the material world, but also science. But let's not deviate. I knew that the science was real, and I thought, this somehow I must have done something wrong. I mean, this can't be really what happened, because I know the science is real. And I thought, what do I have to lose? And I went and I started reading about quantum physics again, and I came to realize that what I had learned, and I'm not blaming any law of attraction teachers or any law of attraction ideas or books or programs or anything like that. This was my misunderstanding. I don't even know. I think there is a lot of well-intentioned misinformation, and I think that misinformation is come upon very logically. I don't think anybody is, knowingly spreading misinformation. But what I realized is that when we observe the quantum field, which we do any moment we're aware and conscious, throughout our entire life, it's what we're doing every moment of every day. We can't stop doing that. We're not literally creating everything, and we're not creating what our conscious mind is thinking about. The things that I call my expectations and my beliefs, prior to creating this game, and you refer to it, I call it a game, I call it Grow a Greater You. I call it a game because it's awesome and it's fun, but I didn't start out calling it a game. I realized that my conscious awareness was not the creative engine. I started to read about neuroscience, and I realized that the creative engine was my subconscious brain. And my subconscious brain stores a big gaggle of rules that I was given when I was a child. We call those rules beliefs. And I, like many people, was under the false impression that the things I consciously thought about were my beliefs. Because if you ask me, Greg, what do you believe about money? I would say it's abundant. There's plenty of it. It's okay for us to have it. I love it. I want more of it. I want to share it. Those were my conscious thoughts about money. But I realized that because what I was creating, what was being reflected back to me by the quantum field was not abundance, then those must not be my real beliefs. Because the more I read about it, the more I began to accept that we can't contrive what we create. The material reality we experience, and I'm looking around the room right now, is a mirror perfect reflection of our beliefs. And thus, when I look around and there's a material experience that displeases me, it doesn't matter what my conscious thoughts about that thing are, or what my conscious desires are, or what my conscious, words or affirmations are. That displeasing reflection is giving me very, very important information about what my beliefs about it are. And my beliefs As I said, they're my subconscious. They're a part of my subconscious, meaning, and there's a couple logical things here that are real helpful for us. If it's our subconscious, then we're not conscious of it, you know? And that's a pretty logical statement. Well, here's another logical statement that I began to see as I began to formulate this game and try to live my way into new beliefs, and ultimately was successful at doing that. Do we ever sit around and think about how much we desire things that we have in abundance already? Do we ever sit around and give ourselves positive affirmations about things that we're abundantly experiencing? You know, for example, I've always considered myself a really involved father, a good father, have a great relationship with my sons. And even back when I was formulating that real estate business out of a deep-seated desire to become wealthy and financially abundant, I was experiencing abundance in terms of my loving relationship with my sons. Well, I didn't give myself positive affirmations about being a loving father. I didn't look in the mirror and say, I'm a loving father. My relationship is wonderful. My sons are fulfilled. I am fulfilled. Our relationship is fulfilling. I didn't do that. I didn't sit around and think about how much I desired it because I was experiencing it, right? We give ourselves positive affirmations and think positive thoughts and think about how much we desire the things that are absent, the things that are displeasing. Well, positive affirmations, it turns out, they only do one thing for us when our material experience is displeasing. When our material experience is painful to us, that's a reflection. That material experience is a reflection of my beliefs. And when I give myself positive affirmations about that kind of a reflection, here's all that happens. My subconscious brain, where the belief is stored, or beliefs are stored, it hears that. It feels that, that positive affirmation. And it immediately recognizes it as untrue and incongruent with what our beliefs are. So it shuts the gate and denies us all access because that's what its job is. The subconscious brain's job is to safeguard our beliefs and allow us to continue to experience reflections of those beliefs. Once those beliefs are in there, it will not allow conscious thought and positive thought to enter and change them. But what it will allow to happen, it will allow that positive thought and that positive affirmation to make us feel good in the moment. And you know what? That's a wonderful thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. If I'm walking around feeling, I don't know, if I'm walking around feeling like my body's painfully displeasing, it's lumpy, it's whatever, it's not as muscular as I want, whatever, and I go look in the mirror when I'm feeling pain and I say, Greg, your body is wonderful. I love my body. My body is perfect just the way it is. I will feel better in that moment. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that can make me feel like that affirmation is working. Now, it is working to make me feel better in the moment, but it is not working to change my beliefs. Doing that, there's a couple things I call that. Now, that's a Newtonian paradigm, to look in the mirror and give myself an affirmation about a painful material experience because I'm trying to fix the material experience. I'm not addressing the source of the painful experience, my beliefs, right? That is like teaching my dog. My dog is laying down next to me in my study, and when I first got the dog, we wanted to teach her to walk. So here's the way I taught her to walk. I taught her to walk like a Newtonian would teach a dog to walk. Okay. I sat down and I made up this fantastic PowerPoint presentation. It had all of the facts, the reasons why it would be good for her to walk on a leash, the reasons why it'd be good for her to walk on a leash, exercise, she'd get outdoors more often, we'd enjoy it more, we'd take her on more walks, everybody wins, right? And I even put in like graphics and screen transitions and sound effects. I mean, it was a really cool PowerPoint presentation. I thought it was very, very complete and thorough and compelling and interesting. It would draw her in. So I sat her down and I played it for her. And when it was over, I turned it off and I said, okay, Sam, let's go. And do you know that dumb dog didn't know how to walk? I mean, can you believe that? I mean, the only conclusion I could come to was my dog is an idiot. So I thought I better go back and make it an even better PowerPoint presentation. I guess my dog is so stupid that she needs, above and beyond. So I made it even longer, more thorough, more in depth, more entertaining. I played it for her again. And guess what? She still didn't know how to walk. Finally, I wanted to kick her, right? I blamed myself. Why can't I create a PowerPoint presentation that's good enough? I blamed the dog. Why is she so stupid? Why did we pick out such a stupid dog? And in the end, I threw up my hands and I said, okay, I guess I'm just not going to have a dog that knows how to walk on a leash, right? I mean, what can I do? What can I do, Tricia? I tried everything, right?
Yeah.
That's us, right? In a Newtonian paradigm. That's how we address our displeasing material experiences within a Newtonian paradigm. That's us using the law of attraction in a Newtonian paradigm. Of course the dog is not going to walk because that's not how a dog learns, and it's not how a dog is communicated with, right? The dog can't help that. It's not the dog's job to understand and communicate with me in the way I want it to. The only way to teach a dog is to talk to it and communicate with it in the ways that it can be talked to and communicated with. The same is true for our subconscious brain. If we want to manifest the big stuff, anybody who's listening to this call or watching this hangout and is a student of law of attraction, I'll bet you, if you're like me, you have experienced plenty of really cool feedback and experiences via the law of attraction about stuff that's not what you wouldn't call the big stuff. You can go outside and find a butterfly, or you can, have wonderful coincidences that you have intended. When it comes to the big stuff, like you said, finances, romance, relationships, careers, success in these venues, health, body, feelings about our body, things like that. The things that we've wanted our whole lives, the things that we've really not experienced on any kind of a consistent basis, the things that we've learned to pretend we don't really want anymore because it's so painful to not have it. The things that, I don't know about you, financial abundance, right? Here I am, years and years ago, I want to be wealthy. I want all the trappings of wealth, and I want to, help people with it too. And I'm driving to work, and here comes a BMW on the expressway, and I look over at that awesome, $80,000 car, and I think, look at that asshole, and okay, so that's what I desire, and those are the kinds of thoughts that I have. There's a big incongruence there. There's a lot of pain there. My beliefs are being reflected back to me, and it wasn't until I learned how to change my beliefs. That's when I started to manifest the big stuff. And it's really a pretty simple process. The only thing that will ever prevent anyone from manifesting anything that she dares to dream, any desire that she dares to, have the audacity to desire and raise her beliefs into alignment with, the only thing that's ever going to prevent anybody is a willingness to do it, because it's very, very simple. If we intend to raise our beliefs, reflect our beliefs back to us. So the only job we have is to raise our beliefs. We don't have to make anything else happen, and we definitely don't have to only think positive thought. Now that's a long explanation, and as you can probably tell by now, I enjoy the sound of my own voice, so I should probably stop talking for a minute. Sorry about that.
That is, reading that, learning that from you was one of the most, it was like a new freedom. It was like a huge weight lifted to go, okay, all of this time that I've been, trying to just be positive all the time and not giving any recognition to those negative feelings that come up, because they do.
Mm-hmm.
And when you you feel like you're going to jinx something good happening to you if you allow yourself to think that. I mean, it's just so weird how our mind works that way, or we're just coming up with all these reasons why nothing's manifesting. Well, I thought too many negative thoughts, or I shared something with a friend about how bad things are, or whatever it is. It's like, ooh, we cannot talk about it. And reading that in your book was just like, okay. And the more I've read and understood, it's like these negative feelings are so real, and it doesn't define you. It does not mean that you're a negative person. It's just information. It's just like, hey, Trisha, something's not lined up here. That's all it is. Something is not lined up. It's to get your attention. It's not to knock you down. It's not to make you feel like shit.
Right.
Because you're not measuring up to, the standard that has been set by what we've learned. And man, really and truly, a huge weight has been lifted, and a new freedom for, we talk about being real all the time. Be yourself, be real. Well, this is as real as it gets. When you can embrace that negative feeling that you're having, no matter how bad it is, when you can embrace it and work with it and know why it's there, instead of trying to shove it away and never even give it recognition, man, this is totally transformational.
You just said it. You said it, Tricia. You said it in a nutshell. Most of us who have studied the law of attraction, we have come to see our feelings as if they are the source, as if they are the cause. Our positive feelings are creating positive material experiences. Our negative feelings, vice versa, right? And that has done a couple things that really aren't very healthy for a human being. It has, made feelings take on a role they're not designed to carry out, first of all. And secondly, it leads us to believe that we should dull our relationship with our feelings, because we actively need to avoid the displeasing ones and chase the pleasing ones, right? You said it in a nutshell. The only thing our feelings do, the only thing they ever do, and their only job is to be a thermometer. The thermometer, if I feel like, oh man, maybe my temperature is high, maybe I have a cold. How do I know whether I have a cold? Well, I can guess, but if I really want to know if my temperature is high, I pull out a thermometer, right? And put it under my tongue. And wait a minute and pull it out, and I look at it, right? Well, that's a very reliable indication as to what my temperature is. High, low, normal. Our feelings are doing the same exact thing for us. When we have pleasing feelings, we are being given a thermometer reading. And the thermometer reading is saying, Greg, your beliefs regarding this area of your life are aligned, they're congruent with your desires for this area of your life. And when I'm experiencing displeasing feelings, I'm being given a thermometer reading that is saying, Greg, hey, just like you said, hey, Greg, I just want you to realize that your beliefs in this, regarding this area, they're not congruent with your desires. Those undesirable feelings, bad feelings, so to speak, they're not saying, Greg, there's something wrong with you. Greg, you're doing something wrong. Greg, this is bad. Greg, you're making bad things happen. They're saying, Greg, if you want to do anything about this, I'm just letting you know that your beliefs are not aligned with your desired outcomes. Now, we don't ever have to do anything about that. I've never found that, some higher being is going to come down and hit me over the head with a hammer if I don't do anything with that information. But if I'm somebody who wants to improve my material experiences, to have them be more pleasing, I'm going to pay attention to that information. We have personalized that information. We've made that information about us. We've used it to define who we are, what our state of being is. If anytime I get financial information and it's displeasing, I think, oh, there's something wrong with me. I'm bad. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable. I can't make these things happen. It's just information. And when we apply our lives to quantum paradigms, it's very useful and helpful information. It just says, oh, hey, Tricia, hey, your beliefs, you might want to go in and intentionally raise your beliefs in this area of your life. Because until that happens, the reflections of these beliefs are going to continue to be displeasing, and you're going to continue to get this feedback, right? The way that we have always treated our feelings prior to is it would be like, I'm walking across my deck and I get a splinter and I feel this really sharp pain in my heel. And I go, oh, I know what that pain is. I've had a splinter before. You know what? I don't want a splinter. I'm going to pretend like I don't have a splinter. I'm going to ignore this pain. I'm going to, you know what? I don't have a splinter. I don't really have a splinter. This pain isn't real. I'm going to think positive. Well, the splinter's never going to go away. And I'm getting that pain, I'm getting that feedback because there's a splinter there, right? Well, the same thing is true with unpleasant feelings. We experience unpleasant feelings because it's feedback. Pretending they're not there is not going to change the source of that feedback. Trying to deny them, convert ourselves to positive thought, think positive. Those are logical things to do, but they're not going to change the source of that information. The only thing that will change, and in fact, I'll go a step further, tinkering with the material experience itself, because think about that. If it's information regarding financial abundance, what have I done? Oh, I got to work harder. I got to spend less. I got to get a second job. I got to get smarter. I got to make wiser decisions. So let me get instructed about my decisions. So I'm going to tinker with the experience itself. And we all know that in those big areas, those important areas, that type of an approach hasn't worked. It produces some short-term results, but invariably we go back to, the pain returns, the absence returns, and it creates that self-perpetuating snowball rolling down a hill where we're questioning our own worth, our own value, our own competency, right? So we feel those feelings, we pretend like they're not there, and we have this fear that if we allowed ourselves to feel those feelings, that somehow we'd be bringing something to life. We'd be breathing life into a monster that we don't want to be alive, that we know, putting quotes, with all of our logical mind, we know that we must keep this monster at bay. And the truth of that is, those beliefs that are in our subconscious that are creating that displeasing reflection about which we're being given the information, that those beliefs are out of alignment. Those beliefs, they've always been there. They'll always be there. Being honest about how we feel doesn't do anything. It doesn't bring anything to life. In fact, it actually takes power away from it, because as long as we're pretending as long as we have this illusion that there's a monster in the closet that we can't afford to be real, that monster is so scary and so powerful. My gosh, I'm so lucky it hasn't consumed me, up to this point. I've kept it at bay. I've stayed one step ahead of it by just staying focused on these positive thoughts and not allowing the negative to really, be experienced full bore. We're fooling ourselves. Those beliefs have always been there. They've always been there. Becoming honest about our feelings and hence our beliefs, it doesn't breathe life into anything in any way that wasn't fully alive and being reflected back to us every moment of every day of our lives.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about how to explain why we all know of people who read the books or hear the stories, or we know people personally that I've said these affirmations every day, and they're doing great. That's what sells the books. So why is that for some everything lines up? I mean, can you explain that?
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I'm asking?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is and I don't. I consider myself a naive optimist. Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean, if by the way, isn't it funny? Whenever you hear somebody praising someone else who, they'll say, well, that person really tells it like it is. That person's not afraid to tell it like it is. Hasn't that always been, a praise that's conferred to somebody who says negative things? Like it's funny the
Yeah.
way we do that.
Uh-huh.
But if I'm anything, I'm definitely a naive optimist. So when I say these things, I don't mean them cynically or bitterly.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely positive affirmation. And by the way, somebody like Marianne Williamson, I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, is a wonderful gift to the world. And
Yeah.
what she is saying to us is not a lie. It's not a scam. There's nothing contrived about anything she's saying. And I don't think she would disagree. I don't know her personally, but I don't think she would disagree with anything that I'm saying. Um, those are a lot of caveats right there, because I don't want to make it sound like I'm impugning anybody else, because that's not what this is about. What happens is that when somebody takes action and it works like a charm,
Hmm.
whatever that action is, what's happening is that person, it has beliefs that are aligned with the desired outcomes. And those actions that she is taking are inspired actions. They're parts of her universe that she sees and experiences. She sees opportunities, she sees potential where I see roadblocks, because her beliefs are aligned with her desired outcomes. So the things that she has done to manifest those outcomes, because certainly action, which may sound like a dirty word to law of attraction folks sometimes, I've found that actions are not only wonderful, they're necessary. Action is always going to be a component of how we bring energy into material form in this time space. Um, However, action that I take without having beliefs that are aligned is that's contrived action. That's action that isn't going to be effective. Jillian Michaels, who has that DVD series, books, whatever, about having a super fit body, and she has those photos of herself with her six pack. She really does do those things, and they
Yeah.
really do work for her.
Hmm.
And I've never spoken with her, she may say, Greg, absolutely, I know exactly what you're talking about. She has beliefs that are aligned with those desires. Those actions are not only successful for her, they're inspired. She sees them. They happen naturally. She doesn't have to sit around and think, how can I make this happen? Let's see, how can I make this happen? Boy, it just flows out of her, right?
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, if I do not have beliefs that are aligned with a desire to have a six pack and a body like that, I can follow her instructions exactly. I'm not going to get those results, because I can't create a reflection if that's not I mean, I can't reflect anything except my beliefs. It doesn't matter what I do. That's where the frustration comes in, because we follow these how-to instructions,
Hmm.
and and being good Newtonian paradigm adherers, we believe that that's the important thing, is to follow the instructions, to take the actions. And then it doesn't work. And we get even angrier than we were before at ourselves, at the how-to books, at the instructors, what have you, and all the other people who are successfully experiencing those things. So it works for some people because the person either knowingly or unknowingly has beliefs that are aligned with those desires. And then it doesn't work for others for the exact same reason in reverse, because that person doesn't have beliefs that are aligned with the desires. What I would
Yeah.
say is this, in my experience, adhering our lives to quantum paradigms is not necessarily about taking some specific set of instructions and following them. Adhering our lives to quantum paradigms means that we go inside and we intentionally raise our beliefs. The rest takes care of itself. Now, that might sound like a fairy tale way to explain it, but it really is true. As our beliefs rise, those beliefs are reflected back to us. We can't imagine what that reflection is going to look and feel like, because we can't experience it until we're there, right? We're experiencing the reflections of our
From
current
where we
beliefs,
are. Hmm.
where we are. We know what we desire, but I mean, in our limited universe, meaning limited compared to what our desires are, compared to our current reflections, we really cannot even envision, we hear things like Oprah Winfrey will say, there's no such thing as failure. And don't ever make failure real. Keep stepping forward. Your challenges are really stepping stones. They're not stumbling blocks. And we hear her say that, and we say, okay, Oprah Winfrey, she was born to a single mother in rural Mississippi and born into poverty. And here she is telling me these things.
Sorry, got a
We hear
dog
a dog
barking.
barking and all these things. But we hear Oprah say this, right? And we think, well, how nice for her. Or maybe we think, well, sure, I'd think those things too if I were worth $1 billion and everyone loved me. Or we think maybe cynically, well, she sure knows how to pander to her audience. Here's the deal, though. That's really literally the universe that Oprah Winfrey experiences, because those are her beliefs. That's what's reflected back to her. She literally sees an opportunity where I may literally see a dead end or a stumbling block. We literally experience the same material event and see two completely different things because our beliefs are being reflected back to us. So I go in and raise my beliefs, whether it's about my body, my finances, my relationships, what have you. As my beliefs rise into alignment, the universe I see changes to be reflective of those beliefs as they rise. And what I've been looking at my whole life, like let's say it's my spouse, I intentionally raise my beliefs about my loving relationship with my spouse. My spouse literally transforms in my universe because my beliefs are different. My spouse may not be doing anything different, and I might not be doing anything different technically. But the reflection changes. It can't not change. And the quantum field, which is the source of the material world, it specializes in connecting the dots behind our backs and miracles and coincidences and things out of the blue, things we could never predict, because it's accurately and perfectly reflecting every single conscious entity's beliefs back to it. So it really is a matter of, are you willing to change your beliefs? It's not rocket science. It does take a little more time. It takes a little more effort. There are two primary ways that I teach to do it that I found to be the most effective things. It's just not, the payback isn't necessarily as visceral and immediate as a positive affirmation, right? So maybe the positive affirmation, as you say, it sells more books, so to speak, because it feels like it's working right now, right? It just doesn't work over the long run with the absent and painful big stuff, because it doesn't really change our beliefs.
All right, I think the dog's quiet now.
Sam liked listening to the dog, by the way.
Yeah. There's been so many ahas in this book, but when I learned about telling a better feeling story,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't wait to share that with other people. It gave me personally, a new understanding of, we're conscious of our words that we speak. We're very conscious of that and always being positive. But this is an ongoing, this will be the rest of my life, telling a better feeling story rather than a good feeling, feeling story about something. So being okay with it being bad. And I loved how you presented that even though I'm feeling really angry about whatever, or even though I'm feeling really worthless, that I can't get out of debt, or whatever it is, even though, and then you add into, there is hope, there is possibility, I am connecting, I'm changing my beliefs, I'm growing into a better person. So that's a powerful thing. I can't share it enough because it has impacted me already in how I speak and how I tell the story of, how we talk to people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
and being consciously aware of how are you telling your stories, Trisha,
Right.
really, So yeah, if you want to say any more about that, I just gave a little glimpse of it, but if you want to go off on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I mentioned a while ago that I thought at one time that we literally create our material
Hmm.
experiences.
Hmm.
And the truth is that we sometimes literally create them. My wife is an oil painter, and she literally creates oil paintings that didn't, that weren't time-space events until she painted them, right? But 99% of the time, we are creating things in our individual universes through our observations that other humans have already been creating in their universes as well. And so, you and I, Trisha, we might be camping in the same campground next to each other in campers. And the first evening we walk out and there's a fire that some campers have built, and we both observe the same material experience. We both observe the same time space event, the fire.
Hmm.
Well, you and I, undoubtedly, most of the time, we're going to see and experience the same construct, the same physical object, if you will. However, we're both going to tell a story about it that is unique to us. I call it telling a story. What we're doing is we're assigning meaning and value to
Hmm.
it. We're assigning context, we're assigning significance. Uh, and in this way, we construct that time-space event, that material experience for us in our individual universe. And it has a unique uh, meaning and value. It has a unique reality in our individual universes. So we can each look at the same material event, the same object, and see two totally different things. Even though it might be the same color, the same shape, the same size, it is literally different in your universe and mine.
Hmm.
Now, that's, how we do that, I call telling a story, right? Because I look at, when I observe or think about anything in the material world, I assign it some sort of meaning and value. I say it's good, I say it's bad, I say it's somewhere in between, or I don't really care. Now, you and I might look at a fire, and that's not necessarily a controversial material object, right? I mean, you might look at it and say, "Oh gosh, I wonder if the woods are going to catch on fire. It's creating smoke and pollution. My clothes are going to smell bad. I wonder if the smoke is drifting into our camper." You might have some objectionable thoughts. It might be a little bit bad in your universe. Of course, I might look at it and I don't even think about that stuff. I just think, "Oh, this reminds me of being a child and camping with my parents, and this is just wonderful," right?
Hmm.
And hence that fire will be two totally separate things, two completely different experiences in your and my universe. But invariably, we don't really care so much how we're creating a fire in our universes. But we do certainly want to create, what we're creating when we observe and are aware of our partner or our finances or our career or our bodies or our health, those sorts of things. Most people have very strong desires about those areas of their lives. Well, when we practice telling the best feeling believable story, we do that with everything, whether it's a fire, a chair, or our spouse, or anything in between, right?
Hmm.
And the way we do that, when we do that, we take control of how and what we are creating in our universes. Now, to do that, and you mentioned, we don't tell a good feeling story. We tell the best feeling story possible, and we make it believable, right? Which means that we talk about and we affirm how we really feel. And if it's something bad, as you illustrated, I say, you know, I don't like this. It doesn't feel good. It's undesirable to me. I wish it weren't happening. And that's the truth. And although those things are true, I can also say that I know this is a reflection of my beliefs, not a reflection of me. It's not a statement about my worthiness or my value. It's simply a reflection of the beliefs that I carried with me into this moment. And in that way, I don't have to beat myself up. And I can also honestly say that I know that if I pay attention to that information, And instead of wanting to change that thing to please me, that I am reminded to play grow a greater you and go in and change these beliefs, then I will eventually experience a different thing when I look at this. And in that way, I do have some authentic hope, right? And I'm also not going to pretend like I feel good about it right now. Okay? Well, that's very, very different than looking at something displeasing and saying, this sucks. As usual, this sucks, and I can't get it right, and this never works for me, right? Because that's sort of the default story that we tell. And so, by the way, we do tell the best feeling, believable story about everything, everything. And sometimes people will say, well, wait a minute, everything? I mean, that feels kind of awkward. It feels stilted. It feels contrived, right? Yeah, it does, of course. For a while, it will, because we've simply told default stories, because we've always, Newtonian paradigms tell us things are the way they are, right? That's just the way it is. I can't do anything about that. And we might not consciously believe we can't do anything about it, but that's how we live. We say, hey, you know, that person's just an a-hole. Money is just scarce. Life is just hard. Careers are just unfulfilling. Spouses just grow separate from us. Our bodies just fall apart. That's just the way it is, right? There's no such thing as the way it is. What's real, the way the universe works, is that we decide how things are. Now, that doesn't mean I haven't found that we can make miracles. Like, it doesn't mean that I can reverse age myself. It doesn't mean I can fly. It doesn't mean that I can turn this coffee mug into solid gold just because I tell better feeling, believable stories. But I would say to somebody, is that really what you want? Do you really want to turn this coffee mug into gold? Do you really want to fly? Do you really want to do fantastic things? I think more often those sort of questions and statements are more, very sophisticated forms of procrastination, as a way to say, this won't work. That's too fantastic. That's a fairy tale. Well, I'll say this. I don't want to turn this into solid gold. I can't say it's impossible to do that, but that's not my desire. My desire is to be pleased by my financial reflections. That's all, right? Now that's a big desire, but I don't need to become a genie. What I want is to be pleased by the reflections of my beliefs about financial abundance. Now that's doable, right? And that doesn't entail me becoming a genie that creates a pot of gold in my living room. What it entails is me raising my beliefs into alignment and letting the rest take care of itself. So ultimately, when we choose to always tell the best feeling, believable story about every material experience, here's what I would say. We only have one choice in this regard, because we're always going to tell a story about everything, always, for the rest of our lives. We can't stop doing that. The only choice we have is, do we want to tell the same old story by default that we always have? Or do we want to intentionally craft a story that is better feeling and believable and brings us more into alignment with our desired outcomes? It's not as if we're going to be able to just decide or choose to stop telling stories. It's just, what kind of story do we want to tell, So that is a fantastic technique. And it works on everything except the most painfully absent big stuff desires. With that, we want to go a little further and intentionally raise our beliefs. And I'm anticipating that you would ask about that, and I will say this. I've never found it necessary to go in and try to find out what my current beliefs are, to dissect them and identify them and categorize them. Now, if somebody wants to do that, maybe that's an intellectually stimulating exercise. Maybe that's fun for some people. It is absolutely not necessary. The only thing we need to do is to identify how we really and truly feel about that material experience right now. That painfully absent material experience. If it's financial abundance, then I sit down and say, how do I really honestly feel about financial abundance right now? And once we identify how we really feel, that's all we need to know. Because then what we do is we one step at a time, incrementally, slowly, and intentionally raise ourselves into alignment with an ascending set of slightly higher emotional perspectives. And the beliefs just come right along with us. And if you have been if your group has been looking at that process, I have an emotional reference chart in the books, and I have a set of instructions for how to live your way intentionally, slowly, surely into higher emotional perspectives. It isn't rocket science. It just takes a certain level of commitment and desire on my part to be willing to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. But that goes back to doing, what you were talking about earlier. It's the emotional steps, as he said, they're just gradual. Less than baby steps, really. I mean, it's so minute up the emotional scale from the pit, the depression, up to ecstasy. Okay, and you can't. Guys, you know that you can't. If you think you can go from the bottom and take one leap, it doesn't happen that way. You know that that's how life is. You know that you don't start, you see a boy that you like in high school and you fall in love. It doesn't go from there to this is the best part of life ever. It's just not that way. These emotions are gradual, and it's a way of, to me, I like how you write about and how you teach it, is that it's kind of sneaking in on your subconscious, without stomping on it or slapping it away or anything. It's just like coming in and walking, put your arm around and say, let's talk about this. Let's get comfortable with this today, And so, okay, you see me, you know me, wow, thank you, And so then the next day, okay, now we're gonna move this a little bit further, Does that make sense to you guys? This is he took the emotional chart. He learned that from Esther and Jerry Hicks, based on what he read in one of their books, and isn't that wonderful though, how this collective consciousness works, where the energy field has everything that you need to pull some information out and go, oh yeah, this works with this works with this. And that's what Greg has done with these emotional levels. I want to make sure they have your website. I want to make sure, I talk about it all the time, but I want to make sure they get there and get on your newsletter and look at the resources that are available there. But before we wrap this up, Greg, there's the one question that is probably the hardest one to answer for anybody, but especially for someone who is someone like you, who has written a book that's life-changing and speaks about ending the struggle and all. It's difficult for pastors, it's difficult for counselors, is the question, why do bad things happen to good people? There's been books written about it. I've done everything right. This person lives an exemplary life. Why this tragedy? Why do they have to suffer through this? And I really wanted you to, bring your wisdom and insight to that, your understanding of that, in a way that would make people go, because it's in your book, but just go, oh, hadn't thought about it that way. Okay, all right.
Yeah. Thank you for the invitation. That is, we had shared before, we got together for this hangout, that my favorite things to write about and talk about are the really challenging things. And you mentioned that I have a chapter about this in the last book, and I'm always hesitant to be super confident about my ability to explain this in 5 minutes. I think it's almost a taboo topic, because people who seek to improve material experiences, which, by the way, let me just throw in a plug here. What is it that we're really trying to do? We're trying to improve our material experiences. We're trying to have more pleasing material experiences. Well, that's not even necessarily a New Age activity. It's not a metaphysical activity. You undoubtedly brushed your teeth this morning, Tricia. So did I. Why did we brush our teeth? We brushed our teeth because we want to improve our material experiences. Now, that's not a metaphysical activity, right? we brushed our teeth because we don't want cavities, we don't want bad breath, we want our teeth to look nice. I mean, all these things. Why do we do that? Because we want to improve our material experiences. Ultimately, what my books are about is applying our lives to quantum paradigms as a way to improve our material experiences. It's just simply a more effective paradigm because it puts us into our locus of control. It puts our focus back on the true source of those material experiences. It doesn't mean that we should stop brushing our teeth. It doesn't mean that we should stop going to work. It doesn't mean that we should stop cleaning the house or, making phone calls, or it doesn't mean we should ever stop taking any actions. It means that we focus primarily on what we believe more than what we do. However, what we do is always important. And this topic, for those of us, and I dare say that every single human being is going through her life every moment of every day attempting to improve her material experiences, even if she's never read a self-empowerment book or never heard of the law of attraction. So this topic, when we say, gosh, I'm focused on improving my material experiences, and yet there are people in my own state, my own city, and all around the world who are suffering, right? There's disease, there's poverty, there's subjugation, there's certainly there seems to always be victimhood, people being exploited and taken advantage of, and here am I as this very self-focused entity concerned with myself, right? My desires. And how shallow is that? Am I allowed to do that? Is that okay? Is that morally appropriate to do when there's suffering around the world? And I want to answer that question and hopefully do it succinctly about how that suffering occurs, but I also want to address for us as individuals, when we fulfill desires, it doesn't matter whether my desire is to, end hunger in my city. And coincidentally, my ultimate desire, my greatest desire, is that suffering becomes optional for every human being. Now, what sort of an idiot am I to have a desire that grand? Who am I to think that I could bring that about? Do I have, some sort of grandiose self-worth? Am I a megalomaniac? I'll say this. I have learned that, one, I have learned not to doubt my desire, to embrace it full on, whether it's making suffering optional or whether it's getting a BMW. Any sort of desire, there's only one way that I have learned is effective at manifesting a desire, and that is to grow my beliefs into alignment with it. So even if it's a BMW, which who is that benefiting, right? That Greg Kuhn has a BMW. That's not going to help anyone anywhere else, is it? Yes, it is. Because for me to accomplish that, if I'm currently experiencing a painful absence of it, I need to go on a journey to raise my beliefs intentionally into alignment with it. And as I do that, I grow my beliefs in general, right? So at the end of the day, our desires are really just carrots on a string. They're beckoning us forward to take this journey. They're almost teasing us or daring us to take this journey. It just depends on how strongly I desire it. And those initial self-serving desires, like, I want to have enough money to go on a vacation to the Bahamas. Who's that helping, right? I want to have a BMW. Who's that helping? Those may be some of our most initial, strongest desires, perhaps. That's just whetting our appetite. That's just getting us. I mean, we're sitting over here in the bleachers. We're not in the game, right? We're not playing Grow a Greater You. We're sitting here watching it, wishing, hoping, blaming, justifying, whatever we're doing. And all of a sudden we say, you know what? I can't help it. I really, really want that BMW. I'm going to go get in the game. I'm going to go play because I really want that. Well, maybe that's God-given. Maybe that's the universe's way of saying, come on into the game, Greg, so you can have that BMW. And then once I get in the game, then I get to play it with every part of my life. Then my desires naturally in and of themselves grow more altruistic because I found that being of value is the most rewarding experience in the world. And the more that I give and the more I put into being of value, the more fulfilled I feel. And I love my BMW. However, the fulfillment that I thought I would get from it really came from my beliefs growing into alignment. It was the journey itself. Now, that doesn't address the question, though, of a child born
Why?
with incurable cancer, a child born with leukemia. That's an innocent child. How could that child be born with leukemia? That child didn't desire that. I mean, as far as I know, some people might say maybe the spirit that is, I do believe that we are energy inhabiting a human body or utilizing a human body to experience this time space. I don't know how anyone could refute that in the sense that who I really am is not this body. However, and some people might say, well, that energy, the energy that is, now utilizing that child's body has chosen that experience for reasons that we might not understand. I, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I don't know that to be true in my experience. And if somebody knows that to be true in her experience, I'm not going to doubt her or say that she's making something up. I do feel like that. I think that it might be easy for a cynic to shoot holes in that kind of an explanation and say, well, you're just justifying. You're saying that that's the way it's supposed to be because they chose it. Well, you're just justifying your self-centered search for, self-focused self-fulfillment. And I'll say this, the question of why do, if the law of attraction is real, if we really do create our material experiences, then how can you explain suffering? Some of that is a cynic's way of deciding not to try this out for her or himself. And those are also legitimate questions. Here's my experience. My experience is that each of us has been given beliefs, beliefs that we received from our parents, from our church, from our school, from the media, from television, from magazines, movies, the internet, what have you, as children. And those beliefs, part and parcel, are heavily influenced by our societal norms, by our collective beliefs. And we, in turn, by participating in the collective beliefs, we add our energy to the collective beliefs. We make those collective beliefs more real, more tangible, more intractable, more easily adopted by everyone else, by all our children, right? For example, if I were to say to you, Tricia, that the only way to rid the world of disease would be if we believed that it were possible, people might laugh at me and call me an idiot. That doesn't mean that that's not true. Now, we don't cure disease currently in this time space by focusing on wellness and believing in wellness above all else. That doesn't mean, though, that that is not the way the universe works. But I will say this, I can't find anywhere, I can't find any way within myself to really authentically believe that disease isn't real. I know that it's real. I know that it's part of the human experience. I know that because it's what I believe, right? And it's so deeply ingrained in me that I think people would say I was an idiot to propose otherwise. And it's hard for me to imagine not believing that disease is real. And part of that also is I also believe that children will be born with leukemia. I know that that is true, right? I know that people will be killed by a drunk driver tonight, somewhere. It's going to happen. I know that. And I know that innocence will die, that innocence will suffer. Because I know that, I am contributing my energy toward that reality. And it doesn't mean that I'm responsible for the innocents who are suffering, but what it does mean is that I can be a more intentional participant in those collective beliefs. And here's what I'm getting at. I helped build a Habitat for Humanity house a couple years ago. And while I was building the house, I realized that I had these thoughts of this family, I'm pounding in nails and I'm thinking this family is really going to love this house. They're going to be blessed by this house. They're going to be overjoyed. Their life is going to be changed by this house. And I also know that there are never going to stop being families that need houses like this, that poverty will always happen, that people will always suffer. And I stopped and I really did pause for a second, and I thought, here I am engaged in this charitable altruistic activity, and I'm actually reinforcing collective beliefs that this is more real, that the poverty I'm trying to rectify is more real than the house I'm building, that this will never stop. And I'm not suggesting that I can just flip a switch and stop believing those things about the reality of poverty, the inevitability of suffering, the inescapability of tragedy. But I will say that by being aware of how I'm contributing to those things, that I can make more enlightened efforts to focus on what I believe and what I'm doing and how I'm contributing to help it, right? And here's what I would say. What I do, what I contribute on an energy level via my beliefs, can that really change the world? I don't know, but I'll say this. The contribution that I make to the collective belief system is a contribution that only I can make. It's a contribution that if I don't make it, it won't be made. Is it the only contribution necessary? Is it the contribution that will finally push us over the edge? That I don't know, but I'll say this. If I want to collect, 1,000,000 pebbles for my Japanese garden in my backyard, the very first pebble collected is just as important as the millionth pebble. It's just as valuable. The very first pebble I collect in that collection completes that collection just as much as the millionth pebble. You get what I'm saying? So my contribution to enlightened beliefs, whether it comes from me growing my beliefs personally, me intentionally focusing on enlightened beliefs globally, that contribution is just as much a part of the completion of a global shift as the very, if you will, the last one necessary to push it over the tipping point, right? So I can acknowledge that there is suffering and subjugation and exploitation and poverty and disease and innocents who are affected. I can acknowledge that, and I can express the frustration, the anger, the regret, the sorrow, the my desire that it change, and at the same time, because I want to make my story believable, right? And at the same time, I can also honestly say that if I do my best to make my contribution be enlightened and positive, that's all I can do. That's all I have to do. And in fact, that's an amazingly powerful contribution, because if I don't make it, it's not going to get made.
Exactly. Thank you for that. That's, again, another part that I read and thought, man, this is something I needed to hear, because we do struggle with that. Why does it happen? And then to learn what our role, what role we're playing in that. Not to berate ourselves or anything, but just to realize that it's a whole lot bigger than just our little world, and that we're collectively, because of our beliefs and because of society as a whole, that we're living in and among, that the thoughts just come. Yeah, children get leukemia. Children are born with leukemia. When you're 70-year-old and you're going to get ready to die. I mean, everything like that. Money's hard to come by. Look at the news. Whenever those thoughts come in, it spreads out collectively through everyone else that is thinking and hearing the same thing. Okay, it's building momentum there. But to know that it's enough. You can't. I think about the littlest angel, that story from childhood. The littlest angel. What can you do? And all you can do is hold a higher thought and tell a better story and say, here's me. I'm contributing what I can to this, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. This is what I could do.
Yeah.
And be okay with that. That I really do thank you for that part of the book, because it's a tough subject to talk about.
And you're doing it right now, Tricia. you're contributing what is yours to contribute right now
Mhm.
in this moment. You know,
Mhm.
through this hangout, through your conversations with others, through the nakedhippies.com movement and website and the instructions that you provide, you are authentically being you. You are manifesting yourself into this time space, this moment in the most authentic way you can. And that's all that you need to do. That's all you can do. And you know what? There's so many of us that are trapped in this fear that we are inconsequential and small and unworthy. And it's very understandable for anyone to feel that way. I felt that way for many, many years. My life today, uh, here's one thing I do want to say. I the life I experience today, I didn't even dare to dream back when. I didn't even understand that this was possible for me. I literally live in a universe where potential and possibility is the rule. And I didn't used to feel that way. And I don't live in this universe because I'm so awesome, that I was predestined to do this, that I was chosen and selected, that I'm some gifted individual. Back during my darkest hours and all the years leading up to my darkest hours, which were very pain-filled years, as probably we all know, that painful Newtonian guessing game. How can I make this work for myself? I never once thought or believed, hey, wait a minute, I'm Greg Kuhn. I'm the law of attraction science guy. Of course, this is all going to work out for me. What am I worried about? My gosh, I am me. Nobody has ever felt that way, right? And I never felt that way. And I don't for 1 second believe that anything that I am doing is impossible for anyone else. Anyone, no matter where you're coming from, no matter where you're starting. I promise you, where I was in my darkest hour, conventional wisdom says that I should be a lonely, probably alcoholic, failure, miserable, blaming everybody and everything, estranged from my children, alienated by my family, feeling like a victim. I mean, if I was even fortunate enough to be in control of my own faculties, maybe I'd be in prison. I don't know. I just know that I refused to put the quantum field in handcuffs, and I still do. I choose to keep possibility and potential alive because I apply my life to quantum paradigms, and possibility and potential really is inherent in every moment. There is no such thing as guaranteed or fait accompli or the way it is. I don't ignore my feelings. I don't ignore how I really feel about things, but I choose to keep it uncuffed. And what I would say to anyone listening to this call is you can not only have everything that I have, because all I continue to do is raise my beliefs into alignment. That's it. I don't do anything else. You don't have to settle for what I have. You might have the audacity to dream bigger than me, and I hope you do. And there is nothing that is going to stand in anyone's way except her own, perhaps, unwillingness to raise her beliefs, her own unwillingness to stop playing small. I can't say, here's what I will say. As I manifest dreams and desires, and I experience the joyful alignment, uh, invariably, I'll begin to experience some painful reflections in that area. Why? Because my desires grow. My desires grow, right? Thank goodness. That's awesome. My desires grow. And when that happens, like with my marriage or my finances or my business or anything, I say, for a minute, I go, oh, crap, this isn't pleasing. And then all of a sudden, it's like a whack upside the head. I go, oh, wait a minute. I know what's happening. My desires have grown. I get to grow a greater me. This is information. This is an opportunity. I can raise my beliefs into alignment with these new desires. Awesome. Life is so much fun. It is a game. And you said it earlier. It never has to stop. I can't imagine not playing this game. I don't ever want to stop just for today. And I'm so, so grateful for all the pain and misery that it took to get me here, to be willing to do this. It was worth every moment of that pain to be sitting in this chair, in this time space, with this universe that I'm now creating and inhabiting and experiencing is worth every second. So welcome home to anybody who is just beginning to play this game. All you have to do, keep always telling the best feeling believable story, and then on your bugaboos, go in and work that intentional belief raising process. That's it. The universe will take care of the rest because the quantum field will reflect your growing beliefs back to you.
Absolutely. There's the book. Grow a Greater You. Get it. Worth the investment. Get on Greg's newsletter list. Is it whyquantumphysics.com?
Oh, it's whyquantumphysicists.com.
Physicist. Okay.
Yeah, quantum
Try to
physicists.
spell that one, but you'll find it. Whyquantumphysicists.com.
Yeah.
Get on his newsletter list so that you receive just more of this. Just to have that in your inbox, just to have something to read. I don't know how often you do it. Is it weekly or
every other week?
Every other week.
Yeah.
To get some good stuff, okay? To keep you going. But most of all, are you on board with playing this game? That's the question. Are you on board? Have you heard enough today to make you go, oh my gosh, thank you. It's time for me to start this now. So I hope so. That was the whole intent, was to say, wake up. We got something here that is changing lives. And get the book and start playing.
And Tricia, and I know we're wrapping things up. If it's appropriate with your group, if there are specific questions that people have and you want to come back and do this again, I'd be happy to. Also, there's a big question that we might want to address, and that is, how to really bridge that gap, how to really start doing this. Not just hearing about it and being compelled by the information and having desire, but how do you step over that gap and really start doing this in your life? What's the key component to that? And that's a tough question too. That's a biggie, and that's one that I like to talk about because it's one that it's pretty challenging, I think, and it's a pretty common frustration. So I'd be happy to come on and talk about things like that also.
Let's do it again. Let's give a little time.
Sure.
And to get into the game. I'll tell you how I got started. Internet went down. I couldn't do anything else. It was like a 2x4 upside the head to go, it's time for you to start writing, Tricia.
Uh-huh.
And it worked. I couldn't work on my business. I couldn't do anything. It's like, yeah, I know. I'm supposed to be writing. And so that's how I got started. So I believe those kind of things happen. The things that you need to get done, somehow they're going to get done. We're going to get your attention and get it done, Tricia. So yeah, let's do it again, Greg. I so appreciate this time and receiving more insight, and especially being here for all the people that have heard me talk so much about this book and about the new understanding that I have. Now, they've taken my words and then going, wow, she was right. Listen to this guy. This is awesome. So he's real, So thank you so much for that. And I look forward to our next time. We'll just stay in touch, and we'll do it again.
Thank you for sharing your energy, Tricia. It was great talking to you. I really enjoyed it, and I will next time I won't wear any clothes. I'll go with the theme of the business, the naked hippies. But you'll just it won't be it'll just be like my shoulders up. Don't worry. We'll keep it G-rated.
I could do shoulders up if I never stood up, but then if I stand up, we're in trouble. We don't want to be banned from YouTube. So yeah, we'll make it fun. We'll have a naked hangout and get all the looky-loos. Okay, thank you so much, Greg. And
thanks, Tricia.
Blessings to you. Thank you so much.
You too. You too. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.